Okay, in order to draw your dragon eye, you're going to draw kind of a big rainbow shape about the middle of your page. You want to make it nice and big because that's the center of our artwork. It's going to look like a football or lemon when you're done. And then you're just going to add these two half circles or semicircles in the middle to make his the color of his eye. And then in the center, you're going to just draw kind of a weird shape, however you want to. They have kind of like cat eye pupils, so I just kind of made it like a long organic shape, and I'm just going to fill that in with Sharpie because I'm not going to color it with my watercolor markers. On the sides, I'm just going to add like two little lines for flaps of his skin. Once you get the eye done, what you're going to do is you're basically going to go around the eye and make these rectangular, like curved off rectangular shapes. I just used the line from my last rectangular shape to continue and going around the eyeball, making the scales. When I get to the end, I just kind of go to the bottom part and start around. I want to make my scales a fairly good size. I don't want them too small or else they're going to be pretty difficult to color in with our watercolor markers and our water later. When I get to the end, sometimes I just do kind of like a little point there just to kind of keep the eye shape going. When I'm done, I start in the middle of my last rectangle, kind of like you would layering bricks. I try to make each of my scales, the line from each of my scales kind of end in the middle instead of like meeting up with the lines. Around the corner, one of my scales is a little pointed. That's okay. I just kind of wanted to keep the eye shape. And I'm just going to continue around his eyes, making different layers of scales. As I go, some of them are going to get a little bit larger, maybe a little bit longer, just because it's kind of getting bigger, like the more you go into depth in his face. And again, when I get to the corners, I just kind of angle it out a little bit. But like I said, when you're drawing these, just make sure that they're fairly large so that your watercolor markers can fit in there easy next week. I like to add little horns on mine. You don't have to. If you would like to, you're more than welcome to. And then I just keep going around his eyeball, adding these scales, and just kind of trying to keep like a little rose, I guess, for his eyes. So as you continue around this, you'll be using pencil. I do this in Sharpie so that you can see it on the camera better. But after you're done with this, we're going to trace this in black Sharpie. And then next week, we're going to use our watercolor markers to paint these in. When you get to the edges, sometimes you just need to add a line. There might be not enough room for an entire scale. So when I get towards the edges down here on the paper, I'm going to just be adding lines. I'll get to that in just a minute. But I'm going to continue my scales around the entire paper to use up all of that space. And so it looks like I've actually zoomed in into the dragon's eye. If you leave a lot of the scales off, it'll kind of just look like part of an eye without the rest of the dragon. So I just keep continuing my rows of scales, trying to layer them like bricks as I go around. And down there at the bottom, I'm just adding the lines because there's not really enough room to make an actual scale down there. Make sure you have your name on the back of your paper before you turn this in, and I will keep them for next week when we fill them in with watercolor.